Have you ever wondered what it's like to cycle through the middle of Bangkok? Well, in today's episode, we will be doing just that, because this is an outdoor podcast episode that I recorded earlier in the summer. This is the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to level up your English one day at a time. I am Michael Lavers, and yes, as I said, today this is a little bit of a different episode because I'll be taking you outside on the streets. So my goal with this one was to kind of go for a bike ride and aim to get to this park kind of on the other side of the city while talking about basically things that I like and dislike about living in Bangkok. And I also talk a little bit about my habits and routines and things that I do to encourage myself or force myself to explore more and not have a very boring kind of routine lifestyle. So of course this is a video episode as well, but as I always say, I do appreciate that most of you are not video watchers, you're just audio listeners, and that's totally fine. So hopefully I think this should still be fine for you to listen as an audio podcast. If you want to see where I'm going, it might be nice to watch the video as well, but you can listen to the audio as normal. It doesn't make a big difference. But if you do want to see the video, you could go to either YouTube or Spotify and have a look at the video there. And I did want to record this quick intro as well, just to say that we did have some audio problems. This is the one thing that I was afraid of when I was recording, and there was a lot of wind and other problems, noisy traffic and stuff like that. So for the first part of the episode, I had to use AI editing to remove all of that background wind sound, which makes my voice much clearer. You can understand me more easily. But unfortunately, it does mean that the beautiful sounds of the birds and the barking dogs have been edited out of the episode, which is a shame, but I guess it's a lesson for me. And hopefully you can still hear me, even though my voice might sound slightly different. There were as well many parts of the episode that had to be cut. I think I had about 1 hour of recording previously, and I had to cut out many parts because the audio was simply too bad. But fortunately, they weren't super important parts, so I think it's okay. So yeah, if you do hear anything strange, then it's probably because of that, but I just hope it's listenable. Your feedback would be greatly appreciated. And in fact, I would like to ask you, let me know if you like these kind of episodes, because if you do, I can do more of them, except next time I will invest in a better microphone that I can clip onto my clothing and it would sound much better. So of course, I don't want to buy it if people don't actually care. But if you do want to see more of these, please let me know in the comments or send me an email and I will do more. But next time I'll have a better microphone as well. Anyway, without any more discussion about this now, let's get right into the episode. Let's go to Michael in Bangkok. Let's have a look.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture with me, your host, Michael Lavers. Now, you may see or hear that I'm not in a usual spot today, and this is something I don't often do. And honestly, I have no idea how well this will work. But I'm outside, I'm on a bike ride today in Bangkok, and I'm cycling along the canals here. And my goal, hopefully if the weather is good, my goal is to make it to a park a little bit later this afternoon. It's very hot, it might be noisy and windy, we'll see how it goes. So hopefully you can hear me okay. But I think I'll just take you along this ride now. I don't really have a good way to film myself. So if you are watching on YouTube, I'll film where I'm going, but you may not see exactly, my lips as I'm speaking. So maybe it's harder to follow. Hopefully you can still hear just as normal or near enough. I have to keep looking behind me to make sure no one is trying to come past. But yeah, hopefully this is okay. If you do like this kind of format, let me know. I'll do more in the future, but maybe we'll get back to that again at the end. So join me now as I cycle through these little canals and windy streets of Bangkok. It's hard to believe that we are in quite a big city at the moment. I'm covered in material to stop myself getting sunburnt. Very important in this heat and this sun. Yeah, anyway, let's go. Let's get started. And on the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about living in Bangkok and the things that I like and dislike, as well as some things I miss about the UK as well. So let's see how this goes. So one of the reasons I chose these canal paths to cycle on is because they are much more peaceful than the roads. If I were to cycle on the main road, it would be very noisy and you would probably not hear me very well at all. However, it is very windy at the moment, which is kind of unusual for Bangkok. So I'm not sure how well you will hear this, but I'm going to stop worrying about that for now and hopefully it will be okay. But yeah, a good word to start with is describing these paths along the side of the canal. We could use the word precarious. So precarious is a slightly more advanced word, but it kind of means something that's likely to be dangerous or risky, or something that's likely to fail or collapse in some way. And as you can see, in many cases, in many areas, there are no guardrails along the side of the path. So that's quite precarious. You also get motorbikes, angry dogs as well. So there's quite a lot of hazards to look out for, but I think that's kind of normal in Bangkok, honestly. And perhaps the biggest hazard might even be falling in the water, because this water is certainly not the cleanest. And yet another thing that I'm kind of aware of, if you look over in that direction ahead, is the sky is darkening a bit. And this is one thing that I've noticed in Bangkok. Oh, these little dogs are always here. They're always in this exact spot. They always shout at me every time, but I think they look pretty harmless. Look how small they are. Let's get past these wild dogs. Hello. But yeah, as I was saying before that rude interruption, unlike a lot of the weather in Europe, it does rain very heavily here during rainy season, which is now. And it's somewhat predictable. Like the rain seems to come around about the same time every day. And it doesn't last very long, fortunately. If it rains during the daytime, it might even just be 2 or 3 hours and then kind of dry, sunny skies again. It does make it very difficult to plan these kind of outdoor activities because I don't want to be stuck kind of far away from home when a big rainstorm comes. I think as a general tourist, it's no problem at all. Like even in the rainy season, it does rain very heavily, but it doesn't rain for many hours usually. So I think for the average tourist, lift my bike up over the bridge. For the average tourist, it wouldn't be a big problem. But if you're planning like a big walk outside or a bike ride, then it becomes much harder to kind of schedule these things in. Because just like today, I've been planning this bike ride and this outside podcast for a while, but it's very difficult to find a day that has, clean air quality because it does get polluted here, especially in the springtime. And the rain as well. Yeah, another slightly annoying thing about navigating around the city is there's a lot of dead ends, a lot of ways where you might go for 20 minutes and then realize you have to turn back. And I know this is one of them. So if I continued, it would be a dead end. So for that reason, I have to lift my heavy bike up all of these stairs, but it's kind of unavoidable here. Yeah, this is quite common as well. If you want to cycle in Bangkok, I feel like you have to have the strength to lift your bike up stairs and bridges all the time. It's often safer than crossing the road as well. Yeah, so what we'll be doing here is rejoining quite a busy road, or maybe the pavement on the side of the road, and then coming back to this canal further down when the raised platform continues further down. But yeah, lots of people have asked me, or they've been curious about kind of my routine in Bangkok and what I do on a day-to-day basis, because I haven't really spoken much about that. So I thought I could start this episode by talking briefly about that. Yeah, because for me, one of the hardest things, coming to a new country or moving to a new place is trying to strike a balance. That's a good expression, which means to find a balance, but to strike a balance between, exploring, enjoying yourself, but also, working and doing all these regular things we need to do to live. So the thing that I try to do as much as I can is to batch all of my work in the morning, which means I try to work really, really hard and get as much done as I can pretty much before lunchtime, maybe like squeeze 8 hours of work into just 4 or 5 hours, as much as I can do that. And I try to leave some time every day for some exploring. So if it is good conditions, kind of like today at the moment, I will go for a nice bike ride like this. Or I will often just go for a walk. I'll try to find a new cafe or something like that. And I've got a few different ways that I encourage myself to explore, because I think it's very, very easy to get stuck in that kind of daily routine, always doing the same thing, going to the same cafes, walking the same way home from work each day. And it's so easy for any of us, I think, to get stuck in those loops. So there are a few different things that I do to try to make sure I avoid that as much as possible. And one of those things is a bit interesting, but I have a map that I made myself that basically tracks all of the different metro stations, train stations, basically anywhere you can go by train in the city of Bangkok. It kind of shows each station on the map. And when I haven't been to a station, it's marked as red. And when I visit a station, when I get off the train and I explore the area, I can mark it as green. So I'm working on this very slowly. It's kind of maybe seems a bit pointless, but I really enjoy it. And this is slowly going to every station in the city. I think at the moment I am just about getting to 50%. I'm not sure if I'm quite there yet, but it's not exactly about completing. It's not really about getting to the end. I think it's just more, as they say, it's the journey, not the destination. It's just having that goal keeps me exploring new places. And it means I'm not going to get stuck in that daily habit of doing the same thing each day. So that's one thing I do to keep myself busy here. And I do really enjoy that as well. And of course, in addition to that, there's obviously meeting friends and stuff like that. What I would normally do in the afternoon is go to some cafe, because fortunately, coffee is much cheaper in Thailand compared to the UK. And in the cafe, I will do some language study. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but I just find, for me, not everyone, but for me, studying in a cafe is so good because it's really difficult for me to procrastinate and get distracted, because I feel as though people are watching me. Even if they're not, I feel like they are. So it makes it very difficult to get distracted. So I sometimes even do, 1 hour in the cafe just studying Japanese or Chinese or whatever it is. I feel as though since I've started doing that, I've made a lot of good progress on my language learning skills, my language learning, goals and journey. So again, it may not look the same for you. Going to a cafe for whatever reason may not be suitable for you and your lifestyle, but I do encourage you to do some experimentation and see what might work for you in that area. But anyway, maybe now I could talk a little bit about some things that I like and dislike about living here. So at this point, it's been about 2 years since I've been living here permanently now. And I will just say one of the big things I love right away, let's start optimistically, let's start on a positive way. I love how many cats there are in Bangkok. Bangkok is definitely a city of cats and dogs. Of course, the dogs are very sweet, but they can be, on average, more dangerous than the cats. But yeah, I love seeing animals everywhere. The reason I thought of this one first is because there used to be some kittens on this street. So I came here one day and there was a group of kittens just here. That was quite a while ago, so if they are still around, I'm sure they're grown up by now. But yeah, another thing I will do is, as I'm cycling around, I will bring some cat food with me, wet food or dry food. And when I see some very hungry kittens like I did here, they were very skinny, so I felt like it was very important to get them fed. Give them some food, so you're doing a good thing while you're cycling around. Generally, the people in Thailand are very kind and they will feed the cats and dogs. So in most areas, they will get food, but maybe in some poorer areas, it's less common perhaps to, I guess people are looking out for themselves. They don't have time to look out for the cats and dogs as well. And I suppose that leads into my second point, which is one that you may have heard before, and this is the people are very, very friendly. I think for a moment, I'm just going to have to walk my bike because the wheel, for some reason, it's a new bike, really like it, but the front wheel has started going very squeaky. I don't know why, so I'll look at that in a minute. But for now, I can walk. It's very peaceful here. I've got some shade. But yeah, as I was saying, the people here are very friendly. I probably can count on, well, 2 fingers, not even one hand. And that's a common expression in English. When something is very low, you can say, I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen something. But honestly, in 2 years, I think I've seen fewer than 5 grumpy people in this country. Everyone's very friendly. They look out for each other. They look out for visitors like me as well. And of course, it may depend, where you're from. Of course, my experience from someone from England may be different from a local or someone from a different country. But I presume generally people are nice to everyone. And that's something that I do appreciate, because in the UK, it's kind of a mixed bag, we could say, which means there are some really nice people, very welcoming, friendly people, but there are also some very grumpy people and rude people, especially in London. Of course, there's a lot more grumpy people in London. And yeah, I can't really say the same for here, even though it's such a big city. As you might be able to tell, it has a very kind of relaxed vibe in many areas. And I think that's reflected in the people as well, very relaxed and chill, despite the chaos of the city. I think another thing that I really do appreciate is there's just so many hidden little areas, just like this. As you can see, there's no one here. This is a very good way to get to the park and avoid the main roads. But no one comes here. So it's relaxing, it's peaceful. And going down these little hidden alleyways, you'll often find local communities. Maybe not many foreigners come down here, so people are often quite surprised. And they will say hello if they see you as a foreigner coming here. So exploring these little communities is always fun. And I think it really does have the best of both worlds. You can go to the center and you've got these huge skyscrapers, expensive cafes, Michelin-star restaurants, anything you could want in a kind of fancy, expensive level. Or you can come out to these areas where it's more, even though we're in the city, it does feel rural. You've got some, whatever these trees are, it's like pineapple trees, but I guess they're just random plants. And, it feels much more chill out here. And of course, one more thing I should mention is the weather. This is a big thing coming from a Brit who has moved from a famously wet and cold and damp country into quite the opposite now, mostly dry and certainly very hot, especially in Bangkok. It's in the middle of the country. It's quite consistent all year round, which means it doesn't change much. It's mostly the same in terms of temperature. So basically any month you come in, it will be quite similar. December and the winter months may be closer to 29 or 30 degrees. And in the hot season, which we are just finishing now, it might be 35, 36. But it honestly isn't a big change. You don't feel much difference. But that's one thing that I find really interesting here. It's really shifted my mindset about the weather, because I know a lot of you are from hot countries as well. But for me, whenever I see the rain or I hear about the rain, I've always associated it, I've always connected it with bad. Rain is bad. We don't want rain. Anyone in Western Europe might agree that rain is bad, or Northern Europe maybe. But coming here, it's quite different. And it didn't take long to adjust to that change in attitude. And that is, when it rains, it's much cooler. So it's actually quite refreshing. So when it has just finished raining, or maybe it's about to rain, it definitely feels a lot cooler, more comfortable, and it allows you to get out and do stuff like this. Whereas in most of the year, it's just simply too hot to do too many outdoor things during the day. So I think a lot of Bangkok is more lively in the mornings and in the evenings because of that. And of course, this next point I have is a big one, really in any city you live in, but I feel like it's especially true in a city like Bangkok, because there are so many food options, drink options, whatever time of day or night, there's always something open, whether you want a midnight coffee or you want to go down and get some street food or something like that. There are so many options, ranging from almost essentially free, like incredibly cheap street food options in some of the fantastic markets they have here, to obviously the more high class, fancy options. There's a lot to choose from. So I think If you like having lots of choice, you will never be bored in a place like this. One good phrase to use when talking about having many, many options and many choices, we can use the expression, you are spoilt for choice. If you're spoilt for choice, that means you have so many choices, you feel spoiled. It's like you're very, very lucky, in other words, because you have all these options. And although I could go on forever, I think I will give one final good thing to end the positive list before we get briefly to the negative list. Okay, for those of you watching on YouTube, I have finally made it to the park and we have avoided the rain. Let's go in. So here we are, very beautiful. It's got a running track, it's got a cycling track, really, really nice. And this time of day when it's still very hot, no one else is quite as stupid as me to come here. So I'm basically the only one here, which is a nice bonus too. There's also a cafe, which I'm heading to now for my studies. Yeah, very beautiful spot. The water level is actually surprisingly low. It's not always this low. I don't know why that would be. Maybe we haven't had as much rain in this season as normal. But anyway, as I try to ride as slow as I can, so the squeaking of my bike wheel doesn't get too loud for the video, the final point I wanted to mention was convenience, right? And this is a huge benefit of living in basically any East Asian city, I suppose, but especially Bangkok. There's so many options. So again, just like before, any time of day you want something, you can order on your phone, you can order a meal, you can order groceries from the supermarket. These kinds of things are very, very easy to get. And that's something I really miss when I go back to the UK. There just aren't many options for, there's a very cute dog up ahead, but there just aren't many cute options for after 5 o'clock when all the shops closed, you're hungry. There aren't many things that you could go and get at a moment's notice. That means on short notice. So things like that are quite annoying. So I've just made a cut in the video. I have already finished my coffee. I've done a little bit of language study, and now I am relaxing in the park. So again, with any episode I make outside, I want to make sure that it's also good for the audio listeners, because I know most of you only listen on audio, and that's totally fine. In fact, I welcome that. But if you do want to watch on video, of course, that's available. And if you are one of the video watchers on YouTube, you can have a quick look at the beautiful surroundings here. If you can see behind me, there's a very nice lake, very peaceful. And again, because of the time of day, it's mid-afternoon now, there's really no one around. It's actually quite surprising how a lot of people don't like the heat. Yes, it is hot, but I think it's bearable. As long as you stay hydrated and drink lots of water and maybe electrolytes, I think it's not too bad. So anyway, yeah, you get all this park to yourself, basically. But yeah, I think just to finish maybe the negative side of this video now, I'm gonna stay here in the park because my bike is getting too squeaky, it's too noisy, and this is much more peaceful to finish the video. My next point is kind of a few different points together, and this is navigating the city. If you're the kind of person like me who likes to get around on foot or even by bicycle, it can be quite annoying, partly because of dead ends. There are so many dead ends everywhere. It's kind of interesting the way that the towns and cities are built. It's very different from the UK. Basically in most UK cities and towns, whatever road you take, it will always lead back to another road eventually. So you walk down the road and it doesn't go anywhere, so you have to turn around again. Again, it's not super common in the UK. Most roads will loop around to another road, but in Thailand, there are many, many dead ends. I've had this happen before where you're walking down a road for 45 minutes because a lot of the roads are very long and straight. And according to Google Maps, there is a way to go through the end, but you get to the end and it's completely blocked off. There's no way to go and you have to walk all the way back again. At the beginning, it's very frustrating because you might feel like you found a shortcut and in fact, it's not. It's a dead end. So that's one thing that I find quite annoying. If I want to walk from the center to where I live, for example, there's really only one road. You have to walk the main road, the busy, polluted, noisy road, and there are no back roads because none of the back roads actually join up to each other. So that can be quite annoying, and I suppose it might make traffic worse as well, because if you want to drive across the city, there's usually only one or two options. And honestly, one of the biggest things I miss about the UK is also related to navigation. This is, I would say, the UK is very good at focusing on being pedestrian friendly. So a pedestrian is a person, basically someone who is walking, and so many countries around the world are more car-centric. This word centric comes from the word center. It's kind of centered around or based around. And car-centric means a society or area that is focused on traveling by car. People often say, for example, that the USA is a very car-centric country. If you don't have a car, it's very difficult to get around the country or the city. And I think in many ways Bangkok is similar, or Thailand is similar. There are some options, as I said, trains and boats as well. But for the most part, they don't prioritize walking or cycling. I think they're slowly getting better over time, but for the most part, it's not so good. And there are many places where there are no pavements or sidewalks, as the Americans would say, and this can be quite frustrating. There are many times where I'm walking along a pavement, suddenly the pavement will disappear, and I'll just be walking along the side of a busy road with cars zooming by, and you just get the feeling that there isn't much thought put into people walking. And a lot of the people you do see walking are often people who cannot afford cars. So really, if you can afford a car, you will buy a car, you will use a car, and walking, I get the sense that walking is more for people who don't have the money to drive, or maybe just for foreigners, crazy foreigners like me, who like walking and we don't want to give it up because that's what we're used to doing in our home countries. So that's one thing I really miss about the UK is it's so easy to walk everywhere, and especially in a big city like London, it's often easier, sometimes even faster, depending on where you're going, to go by foot. You know, there's a lot of laws and rules that make walking safer and easier, and kind of driving more inconvenient. So if you're the person who likes to drive, maybe London isn't the place for you. So that's something to consider. And I think my final complaint, which is really more of a personal thing rather than anything about the country itself, is health issues. Again, I've mentioned this today and in previous episodes as well, but I think this happens to many people who move to a different part of the world or a different climate, and this is when your body has grown up for many decades and years in one area and one climate, and you suddenly move somewhere else, and it can be quite a shock to your system. It's a shock to your body. And for me, that happened in a big way. I wasn't used to living in a hot and humid climate, and yet I kept my same routines and habits like exercise and being outside, and in many ways my body reacted quite badly to that. So I think the main things I'm talking about here is, again, skin problems and eye problems, all these things that are caused by the climate and the hot weather that I'm just not used to. And I've had a few other issues as well, maybe related to food and getting used to a new diet and environment, all these things that maybe you don't consider when you're moving to a drastically different part of the world. But anyway, I think I'll leave it here for today. So in summary, I've spoken a little bit about some of my routines and habits in Bangkok. I've shared a little bit about what I love here and also what I don't like so much. And as you could tell, there's a lot more that I like compared to what I don't like. I could probably fill a book with the things I like. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing my thoughts on this. And of course, we've shared some vocabulary and phrases along the way, which as always, I will write up on the show notes and on the members website as well if you want some bonus study material. If you are watching on YouTube, I may include some bonus clips at the end of this episode, just silently cycling around. Maybe I'll film a little bit of my journey back home and you can see some of the scenery on the way, but I don't think I'll have anything to say. But anyway, I think we'll leave it there now. So thank you so much for listening or for watching today, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.